That night, I left the lamp on and tried to sleep. I set my phone to record in case I said anything in my sleep. I'd read about sleep talking revealing subconscious fears. Maybe it would give me answers. At 3:06 a.m., I was awakened by a creak. The armchair across the room, the one that had been empty when I lay down, was no longer empty. A woman was sitting in it, pale, wet hair hanging over her shoulders, a tattered white gown clinging to her frame. Her head tilted toward me like a doll's. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, my chest tight, air stuck in my throat. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, the mirror above the dresser began to crack, spiderweb fractures spreading out as if reacting to her presence. Then came the hum again, soft, melodic, mournful. I blinked and she was gone. The chair was empty. But the mirror, the cracks remained. When I checked my phone, the recording was corrupted. The only thing it captured was the sound of me breathing, then a sudden voice whispering right into the microphone. Don't sleep in 313. I tried checking out the next morning, but Halpern refused. You signed a 3-day agreement. No early exits, he said coldly, as if he were no longer afraid, just tired. Tired of warning people like me who never listened. Now, every night at the same time, the knock returns. Every night, she sits in that chair, humming that same chilling lullaby. And I know, without a doubt, something terrible is going to happen if I stay here one more night. But I can't leave. Not yet. Not until I find out the truth behind this room, behind the legend. Because something inside 313 doesn't want me to go. And maybe part of me doesn't want to leave either. A soft knock on the door. 3 slow taps. I thought maybe someone had the wrong room, so I opened it. No one. Just the empty hallway, dimly lit by antique sconces. But as I was about to shut the door, I saw it, barely visible at the far end of the hall. A figure, tall and thin, facing away from me. Their heads slowly turned, not completely, but just enough that I could see a pale cheek and one gleaming eye staring back at me. Then the lights flickered and the hallway went black. I slammed the door shut and bolted it. The silence was heavy. I pressed my ear to the wood, heart pounding, but all I could hear was a faint whisper, like someone humming a lullaby, just beyond the door. I didn't sleep. By morning, I was questioning everything. Maybe it was a hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. I hadn't slept well in days. But when I checked the hallway security feed from the front desk, the footage from my floor was glitched, nothing but static from midnight to 3 a.m. every night. The manager, Mr. Halpern, looked pale when I asked about it. "You're in 313?" he asked, his voice tightening. "You sure you want to stay there?" I asked him what he meant, and he hesitated. Then he sighed, as if the weight of the truth had been sitting on his chest for years. People don't stay in that room long. Sometimes a night, maybe 2. They either leave in the middle of the night, or they leave in worse ways. I laughed, thinking he was trying to scare me. Room 313 used to be the caretaker's quarters. Back in the 40s, a man named Elias Kipp worked here. Stayed in that room. Nice guy. Quiet. One night, he killed his wife with a fire poker, said the room told him to do it. Then he slit his own throat while laughing in front of the mirror. They say he never really left. The air around me seemed colder as Halpern spoke. I wanted to dismiss it all, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched, even during the day. The local legend about room 313 is horrifyingly true. They said no one who stayed in room 313 ever came out the same, if they came out at all. I thought it was just another ghost story, local folklore to scare tourists. But I checked in last night, and now I'm writing this by the flickering light of a lamp that keeps turning off. If you're reading this, it's already too late for me. When I took the job at the Briarcliff Inn, I thought it would be the perfect escape. Nestled in the outskirts of a dying New England town, the inn was charming in that old, creaky sort of way. I needed the solitude, the distance from my past, from everything. The locals were polite but tight-lipped, especially when I mentioned my room number, 313. That number seemed to cast a shadow wherever it was spoken. They'd frown, mumble something, then quickly change the subject. I didn't pay much attention. I've never believed in haunted houses or cursed rooms. But the first night I stayed there, I realized something was deeply wrong with room 313. It started with the door. It was heavy, unusually so. The key was old-fashioned, brass and ice-cold, with a chipped number tag. When I pushed the door open, I felt an unnatural pressure in the air, like I'd walked into a sealed chamber. The light above the bed flickered once, then steadied. Everything inside looked normal at first glance. Too normal, actually, as if the room had been preserved in time. Same maroon wallpaper, dusty green armchair, antique rotary phone beside the bed. There is a faint scent of lavender mixed with something metallic, like dried blood masked by cheap perfume. The air had a thickness to it, humid and unmoving. I placed my bags down and opened the window, but it wouldn't budge. Locked from the outside, maybe? The first sign that something was wrong came at 2:13 a.m. I remember the time exactly because the digital clock on the nightstand blinked rapidly just before it happened. I forced myself to walk past room 313 one last time. The doorknob, tarnished and old, was rattling slightly. No wind, no explanation. And as I stood there, frozen, I saw it. The peephole on the door, something behind it shifted. A silhouette, a head, watching me from the other side. I didn't wait. I ran down the hall, barely remembering to press the elevator button in my haste. When the doors opened, I nearly dove in, slamming the lobby button over and over. Back in the lobby, Paul was still cleaning, as if nothing had happened. I rushed over. "Someone's in that room," I said breathlessly. "I saw them. There's blood, or something like it, all over the floor." He looked up slowly. "No one's in that room," he repeated with eerie calm. "I saw them." He leaned closer. "You saw her, and now she's seen you. That night, back home, I thought the nightmare was over. But when I checked my phone, a new photo had appeared in my gallery. One I hadn't taken. It was a picture of me, asleep in bed, and in the background, barely visible near the edge of the frame, a pale woman in a white gown. Her face was distorted, and her eyes, they were looking directly into the camera. But some of us, we think she never left." He tapped the side of his temple. "Not really. That night, I sat in bed, staring at the ceiling. Around 2:47 a.m., the same time I'd heard the dragging before, I heard it again. But this time it was louder, closer, scratching, long drawn-out scratching, like fingernails clawing through drywall. It was coming from the wall behind my headboard, the one shared with room 313. I jumped out of bed and put my ear to the cold plaster. I held my breath. The sound came in bursts, scritch, scritch, like someone trying to tunnel their way through. Then a voice, faint, whispery, "Let me out." My legs nearly gave out from under me. I stumbled backward, heart racing like a drum line in my chest. I flicked on every light in the room and paced for what felt like hours. At dawn, I checked out. But the story doesn't end there. I made it exactly 1 block from the hotel when I realized I'd left my laptop charging on the desk. Cursing under my breath, I turned back. It was 7 a.m., early. The lobby was empty except for Paul, who was now cleaning windows with slow, tired movements. He didn't say anything when he saw me, just nodded toward the elevator. "I forgot something," I muttered, embarrassed. The ride up to the 3rd floor was uneventful. No lights flicketh, no ghostly voices. I convinced myself it had all been in my head, just stress, anxiety, too much coffee, and too little sleep. But as I reached room 309, something felt wrong. The hallway lights were dimmer than before. The air was cold, and there, outside room 313, was something new. A trail, smudged, dark streaks leading from the base of the door toward the hallway, like something or someone had been dragged. I walked to my room with the kind of hurried steps that betrayed the panic I was trying to suppress. I retrieved my laptop and turned to leave, only to see that the trail had grown longer, as if whatever had made it was still moving. The hallway outside room 313 was unnaturally quiet. My breath seemed to echo louder than the sound of my footsteps as I stood in front of the door once more. That night, I barely slept, haunted by the sound I had heard, like something dragging across the floor inside the supposedly vacant room. I kept convincing myself it must have been the pipes. Old buildings groan. That's what they do. But the sound wasn't mechanical. It was organic, deliberate. The next morning, I went down to the front desk and casually brought up the room. "Hey, about room 313, I said, keeping my tone light. "You sure no one's checked in there recently? I thought I heard movement." The young woman behind the desk, who had been pleasant and chatty the day before, immediately tensed up. Her smile faltered. "No one has stayed in that room in years," she replied stiffly. "Maintenance doesn't even go in unless absolutely necessary." I could tell she wanted to say more, but thought better of it. The air between us grew heavy with unspoken words. Later that afternoon, I asked the hotel's elderly janitor, Paul, about the room. He was sweeping the lobby floor with slow, methodical strokes, eyes trained on the marble beneath his feet. "Room 313, he repeated, not looking at me. "You should leave that one alone." "Why?" I asked, emboldened by the warning. "What happened in there?" He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, and I sensed he had carried the weight of some truth for far too long. "Years ago," he said, "a girl stayed there. Young, quiet. She checked in alone. No one knows her name because she used a fake ID. She stayed for weeks, kept to herself. Then one day, housekeeping found the room empty. Just empty. No sign of her. No luggage, no note, nothing. Only a large stain on the carpet that wouldn't come out no matter what we used." My skin prickled with goosebumps. "And the police?" I asked. "Came and went. Treated it like she just ran off." I didn't sleep after that. I stared at the photo for hours, tried to convince myself it was some kind of glitch, some prank, some explanation grounded in reality. But no one else had access to my phone. No one had been in my apartment. And yet, there she was. The same pale woman from room 313, her white gown nearly blending into the shadows of my room. Her face was twisted unnaturally, like someone had stretched her skin over two small bones. Her mouth hung slightly open, as if caught mid-sentence. And those eyes, milky white, rimmed with black veins, looked straight at me through the lens. The timestamp read, 3:13 a.m. I deleted the photo, but it returned the next morning. The same image, same timestamp, except this time she was closer. Her reflection, warped in the glass of my bedroom mirror, now showed her standing at the foot of my bed. That day I called the hotel. I demanded to speak to management, to anyone who could tell me what the hell was going on with that room. The woman on the line paused for a long time before responding. "You said you stayed in room 309, she asked slowly. "Yes," I replied. "Next to 313. She sighed. "You need to speak to Father Moran." "Who?" "He's the only one who's dealt with her." That afternoon, I drove 2 hours north to a small church on the edge of an abandoned logging town. I found Father Moran sweeping the chapel steps, his face creased with age and weariness. He didn't look surprised when I mentioned the hotel, or room 313. "She's attached herself to you now," he said simply. "I warned them not to let anyone stay near that room. Not after what happened." "What had happened?" I asked. "Who is she?" He motioned for me to follow him inside. The chapel smelled of old wood and incense. He led me to a dusty back office where he pulled out a thick manila folder from a locked drawer. Inside were newspaper clippings, yellowed and fragile, and black and white photographs. One showed the hotel, decades ago, when it was still a sanatorium. Another photo showed a young girl, maybe 16, in a white gown. Pale, delicate. The caption read, Amelia Wren, 1946. Last recorded patient in Ward 313. She wasn't a guest, Moran said. She was a patient. Schizophrenic, they claimed. She was put in isolation after she attacked a nurse. But what she said before they locked her away, he paused. She claimed she could see things, that she wasn't alone in the room. She killed herself? No, he looked me dead in the eyes. She vanished, in front of the orderlies. One moment she was screaming, pounding on the door, the next silence. When they opened the door, all they found was a gouge on the wall, like nails had dug into the plaster, and blood. No trace of her body. I swallowed hard. She's been haunting that room ever since, he continued. But not just the room. Anyone who hears her, sees her, acknowledges her, invites her in. My voice was hoarse when I asked, Then how do I stop it? He turned and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a Polaroid camera. She appears in reflections. Photographs. Always closer. She feeds off attention. Curiosity. Fear. He handed me the camera. When you see her again, take her picture. But only once. It will trap her for a time. I left the church, trembling. The sun was beginning to set, and the woods on either side of the road felt claustrophobic, like they were leaning in closer as I drove. Every shadow, every flicker in the trees made my hands tighten on the wheel. That night, I placed the Polaroid camera on my bedside table. I waited, and at 3:13 a.m., I felt it. Cold, like a sudden drop in air pressure. The kind that makes your ears pop and your skin crawl. I sat up. She was there, standing in the doorway of my bedroom. Pale, gown rippling as though caught in some unseen wind. Her hands were twitching. Her face was partially obscured, but her eyes, those awful, lidless eyes, glowed faintly in the dark. I reached for the camera. My hand shook as I lifted it. She took one step forward. I pressed the shutter. The flash lit the room in stark white for a split second, and then she was gone. The picture developed slowly. I watched as her outline came into focus. But her face was nothing but static, a blur, like the film couldn't fully contain her. I burned the photograph, just to be sure, and for a few nights there was peace. But then it started again, the scratching. Only this time, from inside my closet. When I opened it, nothing was there. But on the inside of the door, 5 claw marks. Deep, fresh. Then came the whispering, never coherent, just barely audible, like a radio picking up fragments of conversation through static. Except the voice was always hers. Sometimes sobbing, sometimes giggling, sometimes just breathing. I tried burning sage. I even moved apartments. She followed. No matter where I went, room 313 followed. One night, I stayed with a friend. I didn't tell him what was going on. How do you even begin that conversation? But at 3:13 a.m., he woke up screaming. She was here, he yelled. She was in the mirror. Her hands, God, her hands were reaching out. That's when I knew she wasn't just haunting me. She was using me as a doorway. I went back to the hotel. I needed answers. Real ones. Paul, the janitor, was the only one still there. He was older now, slower. But when he saw me, he nodded like he'd been expecting it. I figured she wasn't done with you, he muttered. I need to see room 313, I said. No, you don't. I grabbed his arm. Please, I have to finish this. He looked at me long and hard, then finally sighed and pulled out a ring of keys. You get 10 minutes. No more. The hallway felt colder than I remembered. The door to room 313 loomed ahead like a waiting mouth. He unlocked it. The door creaked open. The smell hit me first, mildew, rot, and something metallic beneath it. The room was dust-covered, the bed stripped, the wallpaper peeling in long, curled strips. A single, antique mirror hung crookedly above the dresser. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me. The sound of the door slamming behind me was final. No breeze, no draft, just force, intent. I spun around and grabbed the handle. It wouldn't budge. I was locked inside room 313. The dim overhead light flickered once, then steadied. The walls seemed to pulse, like the room was breathing in shallow gasps. I could hear it, soft, wet dripping from somewhere unseen. And the mirror. It dominated the far wall now, taller than before, wider too. I couldn't see myself in it. Not fully. My reflection was warped, like the glass was filled with water or smoke. Behind my blurry silhouette stood a faint white shape, watching. Amelia. I backed up. The air grew colder. My breath puffed out in pale clouds. Every hair on my arms and neck stood on end. Then came the whispering. This time, I could make out a few words. Let me in. I've been waiting. Look. The mirror's surface shimmered. I watched, paralyzed, as the glass darkened, rippling like disturbed water. Images flickered across it. The old sanatorium, nurses dragging a pale girl into the room, her hands clawing at the walls, her mouth stretched in a silent scream. Then darkness. A single bulb swaying from the ceiling. Shadows crawling from the corners. And then her eyes. They filled the entire surface. White. Empty. Endless. Suddenly, something slammed against the other side of the mirror. I stumbled back, heart hammering. Cracks spread across the glass like veins. And a hand pushed through. Pale. Boneless. Fingernails like jagged glass. It reached, twitching, scraping the frame, groping for me. I screamed and threw the nearest object I could find, a heavy lamp. It shattered the mirror into 1,000 shards. Silence. Just my own ragged breathing and the sound of something skittering across the floorboards behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. But when I looked down, blood. It was seeping out from under the bed. I crouched and lifted the dust-covered bedspread, expecting another rat. Or worse. What I saw was far more horrifying. A photo album. Old, bound in cracked leather. Its cover was warped with moisture, stained with something darker than mildew. I picked it up. My name was scratched into the leather in shaky handwriting. Inside were photos I'd never taken, dozens of them. Me sleeping. Me brushing my teeth. Me eating alone at my desk. But in every photo, somewhere in the background, hidden in corners behind curtains, peering from mirrors, she was there. Closer in each one. The last photo stopped my breath. It was taken from directly above my bed. The timestamp read tomorrow, 3:13 a.m. She was inches from my face. Her mouth was wide open. Her hand was reaching for my throat. I don't know how long I was in that room. Hours, maybe. The air felt thick like swimming through fog. Eventually, Paul opened the door, his face pale, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in weeks. "You're lucky," he said. "Most don't make it out." I didn't respond. I just handed him the album. He took one look and recoiled. "You opened it. You didn't tell me there was a photo album. You weren't supposed to go in that far. That album's a contract. Every photo she takes brings her closer." I felt bile rise in my throat. "She's not just haunting people," I whispered. "She's collecting them." I left the hotel for good, or tried to, but the photos kept appearing. In my phone, on my laptop, on receipts, in the reflection of my own sunglasses. I couldn't destroy them. I tried fire, bleach, deleting, smashing devices. Nothing worked. Each new one showed her closer. Each new one showed me a little less alive. Then the dreams started. At first, they were just flickers, visions of room 313. The mirror, the bed, the album. But they grew more vivid, more real. One night, I woke up with deep scratches on my arms. Another night, my mirror had the words "almost time" written across it in fog, but I hadn't used the shower in hours. I began hearing her voice even when I was awake. Driving, shopping, talking to friends. It was always soft, like someone whispering directly into my ear. Let me finish the story. Don't you want to know how it ends? I tracked down one of the nurses who used to work at the old sanatorium before it was converted. Her name was Evelyn Marsh, now in her 80s. She lived in a nursing home just a few towns over. I told her I was researching the history of the building. When I said room 313, her eyes went glassy. She sang to herself. Evelyn whispered, "The Wren girl." Lovely voice, but wrong somehow. Too perfect, like the notes were made to lure you in. Did you see her after she vanished? Evelyn looked around, then leaned in. I still do, she said. She never left. She's just waiting for the right one, the one who'll bring her back. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. Just one image. Me asleep, and behind me, Amelia, mouth open in a silent song. Her hand stretched toward the camera. I moved again. Another city. Changed my name. Got a different phone. No internet, no social media. Didn't matter. She still found me. I visited a paranormal archivist, Dr. Kessler, who specialized in haunted objects and possession folklore. I showed him the album. He wouldn't touch it. This is not a haunting, he said. This is a parasitic entity. She feeds on identity, memory, recognition. Every photo she takes is a piece of you carved out. Can it be stopped? He hesitated. She's bound to the legend. The story of room 313. As long as people tell it, she exists. But you, he looked at me closely. You're the current narrator. The carrier. The storyteller. That means you're also the door. A cold realization sank in. By acknowledging her, by chasing her, by telling others, I had spread the curse. I tried silence. I tried solitude. I tried forgetting. But then someone emailed me a podcast episode. A voice, not mine, was telling my story. Word for word. The legend was out now. Going viral. That meant so was she. The last image I saw before I smashed my laptop for good? A blurry live stream, taken in someone's darkened bedroom. Amelia, standing in the doorway, grinning. They say legends fade with time, but not this one. Room 313 isn't just a story. It's a contagion. And I've learned the horrifying truth. Once you speak of her, once you believe in her, you've already let her in. Now it's too late, not just for me, but for you too. I thought I had reached the end of it all. After the podcast episode leaked and strangers began reaching out to me, some scared, some curious, I stopped replying. I locked myself away. No phone, no internet, just notebooks filled with obsessive scribbles and drawings of her face, her eyes, the mirror. Always the mirror. But it wasn't enough. 3 nights ago, a child's voice whispered in my apartment hallway. She's here. I opened the door. No one was there, just a mirror leaning against the wall, one I had never seen before. And in it, I wasn't alone. Behind my reflection stood the girl in white. Amelia Wren. Her eyes were no longer vacant. They were full. Too full. With stories, with names, with souls. I smashed it. Again. But I swear I heard her giggle as the glass cracked. I knew what I had to do. I had to go back to the origin, the hotel. Room 313. I had to finish this before it spiraled further. Before her reach became unstoppable. Paul didn't answer my calls. The number was disconnected. When I arrived, the hotel looked different. A fresh coat of paint, a remodeled lobby. New name, the Pines Inn. But I remembered every hallway. The concierge tried to tell me the top floor was being renovated. I'm here for room 313, I said. His smile faltered. That room doesn't exist anymore. It does, I replied. It always does. I broke in that night. Took the back stairwell, the one I knew Paul used for smoke breaks. The door at the top was boarded shut, but someone had already peeled the panels back. Like me, someone else had come looking for it. The hallway was colder, dimmer, as though the electricity couldn't keep up with the darkness in that wing. Paint peeled from the walls in long, curling strips. The carpet squished beneath my feet, damp with something I didn't want to smell too closely. Room 313 stood exactly where it always had. Untouched, unburned, timeless. I stepped inside. The room had changed. Or maybe I had. There were mirrors now. Not one, but dozens. Framed, cracked, hanging, leaning, piled against each other. The entire room was a gallery of reflections, none of them showing me as I really was. In one, I looked older. In another, blood dripped from my eyes. In yet another, I wasn't there at all. I turned, and every reflection turned after me, like they were trying to catch up. Amelia stood in each one. Closer, closer, always smiling. I heard the voice again. Not whispered this time, but sung. That same delicate melody I'd heard in Evelyn Marsh's hospital room. A lullaby stitched together with forgotten syllables. The air shifted. Heavy. The scent of old flowers and iron filled my nose. The floor creaked. She was here. I held up my phone, flipped the camera to selfie mode. There she was, standing right behind me. Her mouth opened wide, not in a scream, but in a shuddering inhale. Like she was about to consume the air, the room, me. I turned and shoved the mirror nearest me. It shattered, and she vanished. But in the next one, she stepped forward. I smashed that too. And the next, and the next. Glass ran around me like glittering snow. Blood from my knuckles ran into the carpet. My voice cracked as I screamed through the chaos. Still, the last mirror stood. The first one I had seen, the one I smashed that first night. Restored. Clean. Whole. I stepped up to it. My reflection stared back. Then it smiled. I didn't. I stepped back. My reflection didn't move. It just raised a hand and beckoned. The glass pulsed once, then rippled like water, and Amelia stepped out. She wasn't a girl anymore. Her face was ageless. Her eyes like bottomless wells filled with lives she had stolen. Her gown billowed in invisible wind, and her fingers left frost on everything they touched. You told them my story, she said, her voice like echoing wind across frozen stone. I wanted to stop you. You made me eternal. I backed up. This ends now. She tilted her head. You can't stop a story once it's known. You just become a chapter. I tried to run, but the door behind me had vanished. Only mirrors now. Endless, twisted versions of myself. Screaming, burning, aging, dying. And then silence. I opened my eyes in a bed. Hospital lights above me. A heart monitor beeped slowly. I was alive. A nurse leaned over me. He's awake. Can you hear me? My throat burned. What happened? You collapsed in a hotel. Severe blood loss. There were mirrors everywhere. And a fire. Nobody knows how it started. The room was quiet. Too quiet. I turned my head. The mirror across from my bed flickered. And in it, I saw Amelia. Behind the nurse. Smiling. Conclusion. It's been 6 months. I'm home again, or what's left of it. Every mirror is covered. Every screen turned off. But it doesn't matter. Because people are telling the story now. On Reddit. On YouTube. In podcast episodes. In school rumors. Room 313. Amelia Wren. Each retelling makes her stronger. And you. Yes, you've listened. You've pictured her. You're already part of it. Tonight when the lights go out, if you see a shadow behind your reflection, don't look, because once you see her, she never stops looking back.